Call the meeting to order. Steve Roberts, our Watershed Stewards co-chair, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Dave Abdallah.
Here.
Thomas Berry.
Here.
Robert Constant.
Here.
Lisa Hicks Clayton.
Here.
Margaret Horvath.
Here.
Joseph Kaczynski.
Here.
Ray Muscat.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilwoman Lisa Hicks Clayton.
I move to approve the order of business March 22nd, 2016, regular meeting of the Dearborn Heights City Council as presented.
Is there support?
Second.
Second by Councilman Muscat. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the March 9th, 2016 meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kaczynski.
move the minutes of the last city council meeting on March 9th be approved as submitted.
Support.
Support by Councilwoman Lisa Hicks Clayton. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is fund transfers and current claims.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kaczynski.
move the council approve the current claims numbering 6-1 through 635 as presented.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Horvath. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Muscat.
I have some questions. I believe it's the same question I asked last council meeting about, we'll just take 6-6 for instance. We don't get a budget before payment. Is there any way we can really get those budgets amounts before we pay anything? Like 6-1's the same thing. There's really nothing written there. It just says the amount of what we paid, but nothing before payment.
It's on your budget.
This,
It's a,
That's an inventory item like I explained last time. I don't know where that is going to until it's used on a vehicle and we get the
Okay.
usage report.
Just, I'm getting the same calls on it, and I kind of honestly forgot exactly how that went, but we got it on there now, so that's
And
that.
as far as 6-1 is concerned, that's netted against the revenue that's paid to us each month.
Part of the logic from an accounting standpoint is that when you approve this purchase and we buy the inventory, it doesn't hit the expense account, it hits an asset account of inventories. It's when the asset account is relieved. For instance, if he has, shock absorbers, use as an example, and they take 2 of them out to put on a car, that's when it gets charged. And that's how this works. Whenever it's going to an asset account, there's no way to charge it against the budget. But once it gets released and used, then it is. So this, in essence, from an accounting standpoint, for anybody out in the audience, it would be you reduce your cash and you converted the cash into inventory, and therefore it's not hitting the revenue expense stream.
I just wanted that so people can hear that. So, 'cause if I explained it to someone, I might get it wrong, and I didn't want to do that. Mr. Chair, the next one I have, I guess it's about 614, it's to Bill. What is URT?
it's the
Who's
Great
it
Lakes
from?
Water Authority, so it's the,
I mean, it just says,
That's, yeah, we had
No, I didn't hear 'em.
we had originally got into a agreement to take care of the remaining CSOs, combined sewer overflows in the north end. And Redford, the city of Detroit was building a tunnel, and they agreed to allow Redford Township and Dearborn Heights to solve their CSO problem utilizing the tunnel. When Detroit went through its bankruptcy, they were relieved of it, and there were costs incurred, and what we had agreed to do was reimburse the city of Detroit. So it's a payment to Great Lakes Water Authority for the tunnel, and that was coming down the upper Middle Rouge, and our connection with it was through the park.
I just didn't know what URT meant, and,
Upper Rouge
okay,
Tunnel.
so now I know what it means, I wrote it down. And one more question, if I can do this. 623, we have all our sewers cleaned out. Is there any way they could type that out? It gets awfully hard reading all of that when he writes it down. I mean, I don't understand why nowadays with tablets and computers, why we can't get something that's typed out instead of written down like that.
The same people that do the actual work do this input here,
Pardon me?
the same people that do the work do this input on the paperwork. They write it out. If they were going to do it on a keyboard or typewriter, it would require more equipment by them, and would also take away valuable time of theirs to continue the work.
I don't agree. You know, I did this kind of work for 40 years, and I went to a computer and typed it up. It doesn't take that long, and to read all of this, to me, it's like hieroglyphics. And I'm just asking if we can get him to type it out. I mean, by the time he writes all of this out and puts it on a keyboard, it'd be a whole lot faster, I would think.
I believe it's done right on the job site while they're in the process of doing the work, but I'll look into it.
I thank you very kindly.
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Abdullah.
I had a question for Gary Miyake on item number 622. The amount in the letter said $14,173.98, and then later on it said the amount of $16,575.25. So I just wanted to get a clarification on that, why there's a difference. It's the back of the page.
Now, look at the cover letter is both for Seacrest Wardle and for myself. So the 14,000 pertains to Seacrest Wardle,
Okay.
and the 16,000 refers to me. You see, if you look at the cover letter.
Right, no, I seen that. I read that. So
Right.
it's two different amounts. One is for you, the 16.
And if you look at current claim 28, that's the Seacrest Wardle, but effectively, all the attorney services, he can like subcontract out.
Okay.
But he is the corporation counsel. So Seacrest Wardle has to channel their bill through Gary.
Through Gary,
And then
okay.
Gary submits it to us, but we don't pay Gary, who pays Seacrest Wardle, we pay Seacrest
So in
Wardle.
this particular case, it was a combination of the two then?
It always is.
Okay. Thank you.
Gotta watch those lawyers.
Right.
Any other discussion? Any other questions?
I had another question on that. For item number 625, I want to get a clarification on this. We have on there healthcare consulting services rendered, and that's with Plant Moran for group benefits. And the quarterly amount that we're paying right now is $22,500, which would mean, give or take, right around, just almost $90,000 for support and assistance with annual Medicare drug subsidies, analysis, et cetera. And I just wanted to get a little bit more input as far as how that was put together. It seems like quite an excessive amount for an analysis, and I don't know, it just seems like a crazy amount, almost $90,000 for them to look at the benefits that we've got, or not that we've got, but people in the city have. So can you give me a little bit more of a clarification on that?
Yeah, Elizabeth, Ken, one thing I will tell you, and correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, but they found for us,
Oh, don't steal my thunder.
okay, you're gonna be shocked at what the error, but that's why we employ them. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Okay, so just in the last 30 days, they were able to find some issues on one insurance provider's side, issues that we never would have been able to find, that totaled around $260,000. So they also have worked with us to get the RDS, the retiree drug subsidy, back in the neighborhood of about $160,000 for the last, 4 to 5 years. you have to kind of work with a partner like this because it's so complicated. They're the ones that have the inroad with the insurance companies. They are also our consultants. So when we are looking at possible plan changes, plan design, when we're talking about negotiations, they're the group that will present on the health care benefits. They've also helped us with any sort of our required actuarial reports. So this past year, due to our audit every other year, we're responsible for getting a valuation for what they call the GASB 45. That encompasses all the retiree health care, the liability for that number. They help us get that number done. So really, they do some day-to-day support for our office in terms of claim resolution. But on the bigger scales, they're really combing through those invoices. They work with the carriers to really go through that claim data that we simply don't have access to that data.
So would you say then in the last 10, 12, whatever, 15 years, give or take, it's been right around that type of a number? Because it seems, I'm just telling you honestly, from an outside looking in, and obviously I'm not an expert on this, but almost $90,000 just seems a little excessive. So is that what we've been paying almost?
We have not worked with them for 12 years. We've worked with them for the last, I don't know, 4 maybe.
So prior to that, what was the amount that we were paying? Or were we doing it in-house?
Some of it was in-house. Before I got here, it was my understanding that maybe someone was making money off of the commission of insurance. These people don't receive the commission
Right,
off
they're
of the
objective,
insurance.
obviously.
But that is what most places are having, what's happening. We pay a flat fee to
And how
Cameron.
comparable is that to, like, let's say, other cities? I mean, do they have something like this also in place where they're paying that kind of money on a yearly basis?
Most places have a brokerage, a company that's a broker, works out these supposed deals with the insurance companies. Quite a few municipalities do have this particular consulting group, so that way they're paying a flat fee, they know what it is, and it's not based on how many people are insured, it's not based on the healthcare plans.
And last question, is this a number, I don't know who can answer this, is this something that the city council at one point or another approved?
It's an annual contract, so
Okay.
it comes before, and so this has been the flat fee for the last, I want to say 4 years, they've kept their, since they started, yeah.
Okay.
How much is the overall cost, Vince, or either one of you? Is it healthcare 4 million, 5 million?
Yeah, like,
I think it's like, if you add up all the funds, it's probably over.
yeah.
Yeah, and what's important about that is somewhere years ago, and we really couldn't find out who, but there was, somebody got signed up as like, almost like in real estate, a broker. And so they were getting a certain percentage of our proceeds. So the bill wasn't coming directly to us. Blue Cross or somebody else was paying, and it got included in the charges. And I'm not sure we were getting that kind of service. And so your major communities, your Dearborn Heights, your Westlands, Livonias, we watch this and have these kind of experts to watch the bill, make sure, because $8 million, and they seem to be able to get access, the larger carriers, the HAP, the Blue Cross, will allow them to get into the records. They will not allow us as customers to do that. I mean, right away, when you make the request, they tell you HIPAA Act, can't do this. But they allow the consultants, I guess anyway, they let them do it. So we got rid of that old commission thing and have somebody, and then we can hold these people accountable. And as long as they keep finding, get us $150,000 a year plus finding errors of $250,000, I'd be willing to continue them as a consultant. If that stops, then I would look at somebody else or do it some other way. But it's really kind of a watchdog on the healthcare system.
I mean, they
And I
really,
can see the advantage of objectivity, obviously, so.
we're, being a 2-person HR office, we have a lot of telephone calls that come in for claim resolutions, and we're doing other things like hiring, doing multiple things, especially during negotiation season, et cetera. So when these resolutions, when we have these claim resolution needs, there are experts, we work with, of course, the insurance reps. We try the best. They know they can get greater access to, like what the mayor said, data that I cannot even order because I don't have a right to the data for whatever reason. The other thing is they helped us with the 1094, 1095, and those people that file their income tax they may have received a statement themselves, but retirees and employees, all active people, anyone who's covered by insurance, had to supposedly have these things before you file your tax return. Well, the government kind of changed the rules on December 28th, but we still were responsible for sending them out. Plant Moran helped us work through the data with no extra charge. We're a two-person office. They made it possible. They really, it was invaluable, really, for me personally, because it just took hours of information, and then at least there was another pair of eyes looking at this stuff before they were sent out.
Great, thank you very much.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kozinski.
I don't think there was any oversight for a time that paid as well as this one does. If you take the figure that was cited, 260,000, you'd have to put a couple, three people on to survey all that data that's coming in to analyze it properly and attempt to save the 90,000. And you've got built-in additional expenses, so it's money well spent.
Great. Hearing no other questions, all those in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is from City Clerk Walter Pershevitz, advertise for bids for purchase or lease of a copy machine.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Lisa Hicks Clayton.
I move to approve City Clerk Walter Proshevitz's request to advertise for bids for the purchase or lease of a copy machine as outlined in 7A.
Second.
Supported by Councilman Musket. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is item 8A for Mayor Dan Pletko, Downriver Wastewater System Wyandotte Treatment Plant.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilwoman Horvath.
I move that the council approve the approximate amount of $4,632 for the combined cost of for attorney fees, Plant Moran, et cetera, for the conversion of the Wyandotte treatment plant from Wayne County to the 13 communities as outlined in 8A.
Second.
Mayor, is this, so we need to adopt the resolution?
Yeah, I would, the attorney wrote out for all 13 communities a resolution but basically, the councilwoman's comments would accomplish it. If I might address what this is about.
Please, yes.
The Downriver Treatment Plant, the county has indicated a desire to sell it, and they have come to the 13 communities and said, we'll offer it to you first. If you don't want it, then we're going to go in the open market. What this is going to do and what it's going to achieve, if you notice the total amount to be collected will be just over 100,000. It's prorated based upon the community's flow. So you can tell from this, it's just the south end of Dearborn Heights that actually flows in the downriver treatment. The rest of the city flows into the Detroit water system. In order to even look at and see whether or not it makes any sense to transfer the system, we have to do our due diligence, and that's what this money is for. So, for instance, the county's going to permit Plant Moran to go in and look at their books. And one of the things that the county has told us is that the 13 communities have over $40 million on deposit with the county. We don't know which community has the share of that. And so Plant Moran is going to be directed to go in there and determine how much is in there and what it's for. In addition, they're going to be able to audit the liabilities. We'll get a good determination of what the system actually has as a liability. We're going to determine also the receivables. And the other thing we did, I can't publicly release the numbers, but one of the my strong beliefs is that whatever we do as 13 communities, it cannot affect the rates and cause an increase. So we went out for an RFP and asked major companies what it would cost to operate the downriver plant. The county was nice enough to give us and allow these companies to come in and examine the plant. These are national companies that run sewage plants all over America. We got 2 bids, one from United Water and one from Veolia. We were shocked, and that's the one thing I can't reveal, the amount of savings that these companies said they could run the plant for. So we're being hugely overcharged by the county. Part of this fee is to get an independent engineer who is familiar with the system to make sure that the Veolia and the United Water bids were accurate. But if they stand, both of them hugely could operate the plant far cheaper than the county. The other 2 things I'll address is this plant does not make money or lose money. How it operates is the county operates it for $17.5 to $18 million a year. Then it splits the bill to the 13 communities based upon flow. And so if the county has no incentive, I mean, if it goes to 20 million, we pay 20 million. Where we think we could look at an operator coming in and they believe they could reduce the cost of the plant. There's a couple charges in there, and anybody that's dealt with the county has run into these. And these are these management fees and other surcharges that they tell us, and we think we're paying for, back in the day, Facano and Evans, all the way down, and attorney costs and HR and everything else. We think those are hugely inflated. So Plant Moran will go in there, look at how they're being allocated, look at the liabilities from a pension standpoint, from a healthcare standpoint, because they now, according to GAAP, they will have to put that in their books like we're going to have to put those unfunded healthcare, and that's going to have an effect on the balance sheet. So after we get all this information, and then we will look at it, and then all of us that serve on the board will have to come back to our city councils, and some of them don't have mayors that sit on the board. So they'll come back to their mayors or their city managers and say, here's the situation. Would you look at or not look at favorably purchasing the county share? But that's all in the future. All this does right now is gets us the information and the data, so later on, when that comes before us, we can make an informed decision. So
Sure.
this is really information gathering. Yep.
Councilman Berry.
Yeah, a couple things. I have a couple of questions. The $106,000, it's followed by the verbiage on an annual basis. How long do we believe that this assessment process is going to take place?
I would be surprised if it lasts more than 6 to 9 months.
But in approving this, we're opening the door for an annual basis. And I would not suspect that would take that long, but this just raises a little red flag to me. Second, I know that there was an argument at one point. The question is why are we going to buy something from the county that we own?
That's a good question, and that is one of the arguments that we as a community use. Judge Kaufman, who is CEO Evans's right-hand person, and cheap operating. Judge Kaufman expressed it in a meeting that I had attended, and he said, you know, the county probably owns part of the plant, and the 13 communities own part of the plant. So we can sit here and argue and go to court, and the county can spend $50 million, and the cities can spend $50 million, and it'll be a landmark decision by the Michigan Supreme Court, and probably when you get all done, they're going to split the baby in half and say, you own part and you own part. Is there any way that, and so Judge Kaufman said, rather than spend all this money and make the attorneys rich, can we come to some kind of agreement that we know that they own the land, there are some other fixed assets that they own, and that's one of the things that you brought up a good point, because we asked the county, what is it that you, in essence, are transferring your interest to? And so we need a detail, and that's where the engineers can look at, because there's tunnels. When you get down in the Wyandotte and Southgate, there's a unique collaboration, and it funnels into the system. Is that included? Is the North End Tunnel included, or is it just the plant? That's really to determine all that.
Councilman
So
Abdullah?
they'd become a 14th community.
No, if it's transferred, we don't want them.
But what I'm saying is if they did the appraisal on this property and they divided its value to 13 communities, the county itself should be classified as a 14th community if they all have equal share.
And that's how, there's another board besides this authority, and that's the one I'm the chairman of. And the county has a seat at the table and a vote, and the 14 community, so in essence, it's 14 of us having a vote. That's on the operation of the system. A separate authority was created, DUA, and that's only the 13 communities. So it's really, what is the value of that 14th position? And that's to be determined at this time.
Thank you.
So in essence, instead of the private company contracting with the county, it would be contracting with the authority, which will be in effect the member communities.
Well, it gets more complicated than that. If there's chalk here, yeah, there is some chalk. As it sits now, the county operates it, and then, let's say that it's 17 to 18 million dollars to operate it. That includes their fees. What they do is they send the bill to the 13 communities based on flow, and we pay it all, whether it's efficiently run or inefficiently done. The two alternatives are the county is already made contact, and they want to sell the facility for $200 million. And for finance people, there are hedge funds that are willing to buy this. So how you have to look at this is that the hedge fund wants its $200 million of investment back plus some kind of profit. It's been estimated that they're looking for a 6 to 8% return. So in essence, when we get the bill, now we get 17 or 18 million dollars. Let's say this is financed over 20 years, so I can use numbers that would be easy to divide. We'd get 18 million plus 10 million that would go plus whatever the profit is. So if it's 6 or 8%, it's going to be, maybe $11 million. What we've looked at is take the county completely out of it, and the communities, the cities and the townships would own the system. We've gone out for an RFP. We know these numbers are high. We've been told that privatizing it, if you will, could bring this number down to 12 to 13 million. The only addition would be, what is the number that transfers the county interest to? and that would have to get added. And my contention is, we're paying 17 to 18 million now, and it's reflective in the rate. When we get to here, whatever this number is, if it goes beyond 17 to 18 million, I got a problem with it, because now the rates are effectively higher. So, is there enough savings here to over 20 years, buy their interests out and keep this number low, and then who's in control of the system? The 13 communities, and the county is out of it. That's the concept.
And if a private operator operated it, eventually they could charge communities like us whatever they wanted.
That's another good point, because and when we interviewed and we know it was one of the two that the county contacted, so when we interviewed them and talked to them, they said, oh yeah, hedge fund, do you guys want 200 million? We could go in, and we go, no, we want this to be, because it affects rates. And they all picked up. I want this, I've always said it's gotta be rate neutral. And the big point is, I mean, every year we go through and people holler at us, the rates are too high. And all the mayors and the council members and others that serve on that committee can relate to that. And we said, no, we agree with Mayor Plutko, it needs to be rate neutral or we won't look at it. So that's the concept. This fee of $4,000, our share, Taylor and Romulus are gonna pay almost $24,000 apiece. They're almost 50% of the system. And our questions are their questions. And so this is, in essence, I've indicated to you, I probably shouldn't have revealed these because these were sealed bids, but nevertheless, they're very close to the numbers. But that's the logic. And before anything can be transferred or done, agreement has to be completed, and it cannot be completed without due diligence, and it all has to come back to each of the 13 communities, and I would say their legislative bodies would have to approve it. That's down the road. All we're doing today is looking to see what is in the county books and what's not in the books, the liabilities, the receivables, the deposits, and what it's, doing our due diligence.
Mr. Chairman. Councilman Abdullah?
Mayor, I had a couple of questions for you. First question is, let's presume that all 13 communities did not accept this, so just hypothetically 5 did. Can this still be done? Or do all 13 have to approve this?
How do you open this up?
Turn it.
I got chalk. I'm going to answer what I think. Because some of this has got to be reviewed by attorneys. Some communities cannot buy it. They have emergency managers or just got out of it. There's 4 or 5. I don't think financially can do it. I think it'll end up, the key is going to be Romulus and Taylor. Because even if some of the smaller ones, let's say Ecorse, River Rouge or something like that, doesn't move our number very high. But if it's a Romulus or a Taylor, a Southgate or a Wyandotte, those are the main contributors. But it'll have to be a new authority because DUIC is consisted of 13 communities. We're all in it together. So I don't exactly know what'll happen, but that is a possibility in my own mind that I think is going to be very difficult for them.
Okay. And then the second question I had, I'm sorry, if you don't mind. Second question I had is, if we took over the authority of this particular entity, do we have much more leverage as far as what's going on in the South Heights, as far as the floods and what have you is concerned? Is this something that could be, I mean, obviously we're trying to get all kinds of things to work in our favor, but is this something that would work in our, or could work in our favor as far as having a little bit more leverage to do things that's in the best interest of, the South Heights flooding situation?
I believe it does because the county at various times has been an opponent to the plan. Now they're partnering with us, but at any point in time, they can become an opponent, and that takes them out of the equation. So I think that's beneficial for the Ecorse Creek flooding plan. The other thing I wanted to mention is, let's say that 10 of the communities buy the system and the other 3 do not. What would eventually happen is the 3 would become customers.
Right.
We have indicated, at least this is an opinion of me, Romulus, and Taylor mayors, because we all attend all the meetings, that if we're taking on a risk, then the customers are not going to get the same rate that the owners are. So we would charge the customers a premium, and in essence reducing our rate as owners, and the customers would pay more. Some of those communities have said, well, that's not fair, and we said, hey, we're taking on the risk if we do this. And so that's how I think it would work out. So the fee, there'd probably be a customer charge and then an ownership fee, but there would be a differential. And the attorney said that that's okay under state law, because you can charge a different rate, because they came back and said, well, you can't, you're a public utility. And we've already had, there's precedent for that in other systems.
A plan.
And so there would be a price differential.
For the additional liability that the authority has, and the members of the authority.
Correct.
Mr. Chair.
Are you done?
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Musket.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for that explanation. I was going to ask you if you could explain it to our citizens the way we had you explain it to us at a study session. It was very well. A lot of the questions I was going to ask you were already answered, but just one question. As far as liability goes, as far as you get, like say we have a major problem there, an explosion like they did at the Detroit waste treatment, somebody gets killed. How is that, you get multiple deaths? Is there going to be enough insurance to cover all of this stuff by?
Good point, and we talked about that amongst ourselves. Under the current situation, what the county does now, say the plant exploded and they had to spend $200 million to fix it. It all gets billed to the 13 communities. The county never puts a dollar in. What we would expect, and there is insurance, in fact, the county had no insurance on the plant. It was actually our attorney, Patrick McCulley, who thought, one day he asked a question, and they said, oh, well, we have a general insurance plan, and we found it wasn't included in the insurance package. So that was about 10 years ago, and Patrick McCulley went out and he got insurance. And in fact, that was one of the comments that was made to the county in the last month, that insurance has to be renewed every May, so it's coming up. And while we're all talking about this, you better renew it, because the 13 communities are paying for it. It's not that much money, but that protects us. And so the plant is insured. I don't know about all the pipes and everything around the plant and feed to it, but the plant itself and its operation.
Okay, so that would include workers if somebody should die in a plant?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a very broad, and fortunately, we share an attorney with the city of Taylor, Patrick McCulley, who made the presentation. And Patrick was selected before I was mayor. It was a good selection by my predecessor. We've kept him on. I think we know his strengths and his weaknesses, but he's very detailed, and about things like that, Patrick has done a very good job for us. And Gary and I have talked about it, and we feel very comfortable. But we insisted, as 13 communities, that the county have that insurance.
Thank you.
Mr. Miyake?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out this is a very, very complex legal issue, and I wouldn't want to say too much, especially in a public forum, because there's going to be negotiations potentially in the future with respect to this. But there's a great deal of uncertainty with regard to some of this. So the first thing that should be done is this type of due diligence to try to get a better handle on the issues that right now are uncertain, even legally. For example, The county's position is that they have a great ownership interest vis-a-vis the 13 communities. The 13 communities look at it differently. I can tell you the law is very uncertain, and I think that's about all I can really say in this forum. And so having things quantified at this point is a very good idea, and I would suggest that the council adopt this resolution.
Do the number crunching.
Exactly.
Anything else, Councilman Musket?
No, that's it, thank you.
Councilwoman Lisa Hicks Clayton.
Thank you. I too appreciate the mayor's explanation. I know I had several questions before the council meeting, so thank you for the clarity and definition. I guess the question I have is with the 13 communities, and we already know that there are some that won't have buy-in because of their status, correct? So if it comes, because all of the resolution has to come before all of those entities, all those bodies, and if enough of them don't adopt the resolution, it can skew the numbers, like you said, which is the purpose, is to defray the cost, right, of this assessment. Would we go back and amend the resolution or rescind? How do you approach that?
Because this is just to pay for the professionals and the information gathering. Will not affect, the information gathered could affect the transaction and could affect how we want to look at the transaction. But no, I think this surcharge, which is about $100, $200 a month, I don't expect to go very long, because I believe in the county put it in its deficit reduction program to the state. The county fiscal year ends on September 30th. So you look at where we are now, the county wants to get this deal done by 9/30. And so we need the information quicker than that. So it would surprise me if this went, like I indicated to Councilman Berry, 6 or 9 months. It seems to me is a long time. I think it'll be done well before that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Kozinski.
It's understood, Mayor, that this is a very basic first step to determine what can indeed be done with regard to the wastewater plant. Will the assessment by the professionals tell us or give us a clue at all if 13 communities cannot participate, leaving only 12 or 8? Or is that a second step that needs to be?
No, this is also to include bond counsel and also the Department of Treasury, because a lot of the debt associated with the treatment plant is SRF funding. And so consequently, that all went through the Treasury, and it's subsidized by the federal government. There's been preliminary discussions with the Department of Treasury, and they have indicated that they don't believe there's a problem, because what is the all this debt that's been released, when you look back on it, what did they indicate to all of the creditors to get the debt? That these 13 communities all pledged their full faith and credit to pay for it. In fact, there was one community, I don't know that I'd publicly embarrass them, who stopped making the payments because they ended up with an emergency manager. And then what the state did was the emergency manager had allowed the state, and they agreed, they kept their state shared revenues and they went to pay the bonds. So that has come up, and we were told also by Treasury that if, because I think there's 3 or 4 that may not be able to, they will want to be members, but they may not be able to. And we were told that the 13 communities, the DUA authority, would have the same, because it's tied in with the RSF funding, that if any of them decided they weren't going to pay, that we could collect their state shared revenues. That the same rules would apply because of the fact that it affects the state.
And if I may, it's actually in the original agreements.
Okay.
It's been in there for decades. So that essentially if the communities basically renege or default, I mean, essentially what happens is the county can just end up getting the money. So there's a...
right to set off, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's another consideration that crosses my mind, and that is that, I think somebody mentioned it. If there was an expansion occurring to accommodate or eliminate or alleviate the problems of flooding along the Ecorse Creek by virtue of expanding the wastewater treatment plant, that would be another interesting part that we would want to look at if that is a possibility.
Yeah,
So it may be cheaper to take that route than to go the Greenway route or any other proposal that we've already entertained.
Yeah, we looked at that, the Army Corps of Engineers. The treatment plant is landlocked. There is no ability to expand the plant as it sits right now. It's right on the outskirts of the city of Wyandotte, and it really got stuck in, using the collective, if it was a foot, it was a shoehorn to get it in there. There is no possibility of expanding that plant. And that's very critical because of the fact that, that would have been possibly a potential solution to some of the flooding. And when you talk, Southgate, Wyandotte has significant flooding, those along that tier. And then in the whole tunnel, the Allen Park, Dearborn Heights, Taylor, they all have particular flooding issues. And one of the things that I think would assist is those areas that haven't grown out, like Dearborn Heights has or in Allen Park, the communities would be able to then put some pressure on as the Romuluses and others start to build up, that you've got to contain that because the plant can't handle it and you can't be flooding your neighbors. So there's some additional benefits that will arise, in my opinion, but I can't confirm that. But those are not issues that are covered by this particular study.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please state aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is from City Clerk Walter Pershevitz, the liquor license review.
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Berry,
may I ask the clerk for some clarification on this, please?
go right ahead.
Mr. Clerk, can you please share some clarification with this? I'm a little puzzled as to what you're asking for.
Actually, to be perfectly honest, I'm not asking for anything. The way the ordinance is written, this is a council decision. You have some information giving to you regarding, we reviewed, most of the departments in the city reviewed what their relationships are with these licensees, and we relayed to you. I sent an email. I don't know if you saw the email.
And an Excel spreadsheet.
And this is preliminary, I think it, I had some discussion with Councilor Miyake today, and I think it is probably wise that we.
Yeah, I'll address it. Last year, you adopted the ordinance, this body adopted the ordinance that allows for annual reviews, along with a lot of other things having to do with regulation of liquor licenses. This body is supposed to annually review these licenses based on information that ends up being received from various departments. Then this body can end up making a decision whether or not ultimately, but not necessarily preliminarily, whether or not to recommend to the State Liquor Control Commission whether or not to renew or potentially even to revoke liquor licenses for on-premises establishments. My recommendation in this situation is there's still some information that has to be received in terms of building, even though it's not listed in the information that you received from the fire department. The fire department did provide that information. They have no information that suggests that any of these establishments should face possible revocation of their license or possible non-renewal. And I would also...
Have those fire inspections been completed?
Well, everything right now is being done at a very basic level. Are they in violation in such a way that's going to end up causing a hazard to people who are on the premises. Same thing for the police department. And then with regard to the comptroller's office and treasurer's department, it's a matter of, are there outstanding obligations to the city? Basically some of the same things with regard to the city clerk's office. As you can see from the information being given, a number of these establishments do have outstanding obligations, and therefore under the ordinance would be potentially in jeopardy with regard to their license. My recommendation would be that, having completed this initial step in terms of review, that the matter gets referred to a study session of this body, and then this body can end up giving the city clerk and potentially myself, if necessary, further direction about how you want to proceed, especially since what we're looking at is financial obligations, and perhaps a more stern letter saying, hey, if you don't pay these by city ordinance, you are potentially end up going to have a recommendation made to the Liquor Control Commission to revoke your license. Please pay up because you owe these amounts. And I have to say, and I think I've said it to this body before, but not recently, the Liquor Control Commission takes the position that if there is a recommendation that is received from a municipal legislative body, a city council, board, they just will go ahead and revoke. And within a day, agents from the Liquor Control Commission will be going out to that business establishment, doing an inventory of everything that they have and impounding it. And so, I mean, essentially, my recommendation is based on the idea of taking a measured approach, because before you would do anything, you have to give the people an opportunity, notice and an opportunity to be heard prior to taking such a drastic action. But hopefully that will be unnecessary, and these businesses will end up paying what it is that they owe. I mean, it could be even low amounts, like you see people not renewing a business license that's, a nominal amount, and potentially being in a position where, I mean, I think they would look at it more rationally to simply pay what it is that they owe and
You would
avoid that
think
kind of
so,
problem.
yeah.
A couple of these had multiple years, I remember.
Go ahead, Councilman Terry.
I'd like to receive, note, and file the agenda item 9A from the city clerk and recommend that we move this to a study session for further review and discussion.
I support that, yes.
Go ahead.
If I may, I've actually, basically the recommended motion that I have here, it would be, I move to defer further action related to the City Council's annual review of on-premise liquor licenses to a study session of the City Council, the initial review having been completed and further information and discussion being necessary to more fully conduct the annual review.
You took the words right out of my
Support that motion.
Yeah, and maybe even for some of the establishments that are closed,
Thank you.
record something so that a potential buyer knows coming in, like I know the situation with some of our other businesses coming in, that there are amounts owed.
Right, and that's what this body could say, is say, look, if the payment plan is made with respect to this particular item, then that will end up being acceptable. Or, for example, some of these establishments might be closed but going through bankruptcy, then we shouldn't be doing anything with respect to the liquor license because it might be considered to be a violation of the automatic stay.
But yeah, corporate debtor doesn't get a discharge.
Chairman?
Councilman Kozinski.
Yes,
Councilman Horvath.
I'm hoping that the study session will entertain a consideration of establishing a very rigid protocol that these businesses would have to address to every department that touches that business: police, fire, water, city clerk, and whoever,
Building and safety.
treasurer, whoever it might be, so that if this protocol is addressed and travels through each of those departments for an assurance that everything is in order, we'll have a format by which we can live and have all of the information correlated in one area, so that when it comes time for a renewal, all you have to do is pick up the file and see what has been neglected and what has to be done, and other issues. The information that was sent through the email is rather astounding. How can a business who serves liquor by the glass abandon the responsibility of paying a water bill? You cannot conduct a business of that type without keeping your water bill up, unless you want to drink straight out of the bottle, and then you've got another issue. But some of this goes back to October 13th, March 15th, September 13th,
Is that of last year?
and September of 2013.
2013.
In September of 15. If this protocol is put in place and rigidly enforced, we would avoid this kind of experience, because in the annual review, the package or the envelope of each individual business would transfer or traffic through these various departments and find out where the shortcomings are. If there are shortcomings, let them get paid up in 30 days, or we got a lock for you.
For example, remember the arena, they said they had a $5,000 water bill, oh, we didn't know where it came from, and I think there were other sales of businesses that we had to broker a deal with an arrearage they had. And selling of alcohol has always been more highly regulated, and we're gonna have to look at, if some medical marijuana shops move in, that's a new area that's also gonna have to be regulated. Councilman Berry?
Yeah, Mr. Councilman, just to share with you, prior to Clerk Pershevitz taking his position as the clerk and the ordinance being in place, there was a form that outlined and required the signature of the head of every department prior to an establishment being authorized to even open for business. Unfortunately, as you know too well, we're only as good as our enforcement. To that point where we lack the ability to enforce anything is the fact that the clerk doesn't have an ordinance officer to help him assist in reviewing these and going out and inspecting these facilities. So just food for thought. It's something we want to consider during budget time as well, when we talk about budgets.
If you have a paper trail documented,
And it's,
with a backup of each, I'm not trying to make work for the department, they got enough to do now, but it's one of those necessities.
it's a necessity.
Who would hear of arrears of a $3,000 or $4,000 water bill? That's unacceptable. Somebody has to carry that burden.
We're in 2016. You give me a list of places from 2013.
Mr. Chair?
Councilman Musket?
This doesn't have to strictly to do with liquor licenses, but
No, it doesn't.
do we have an ordinance that specifically says businesses have to have a license in the city of Dearborn Heights?
Yes, there are a number of businesses or types of businesses that are exempt because they're state licensed businesses. For example, a lawyer who's providing only law services, but a different example would be, say, a pharmacist who is licensed still has to have a city business license if they sell anything other than things that they can dispense based on their license. So if they sell, for example, water or something along those lines, they still have to have a business license.
So what is the penalty for not having a business license in the city? And how do you go about forcing them to get licenses?
Well, I believe it's a $100 fine for the first offense.
How much?
And a $100 fine.
Yeah, you
And
inject something on that? I know that you're being issue-specific business license, but that form or that license is registration/license.
yeah,
So it serves both purposes, because those professionals that are licensed by the state to operate, we cannot require them to obtain a license through us, but we can require them to register so that we know they exist.
And so that we actually have a notion of who we contact, say there's a fire on their premises, then we have an ability to basically have a contact person. So the way it's structured is business license / registration. And I think that actually was an idea of yourself, Councilman Jarrett. And that's what we ended up doing. So you have people who even aren't licensed, they still have to be registered as long as they're doing business in the city to make sure in case there's a problem that takes place on their premises. But again, it would be a $100 fine for a first offense, and that is a municipal civil infraction ticket.
I know that I've hounded our ordinance department with a lot of businesses that are doing shady things, and I feel bad that I'm constantly calling them and giving them numbers, and Jack works to the wee hours of the night for crying out loud, and like tonight, he's sitting in his office till before the meeting started working. And we just need to do something. You know, we just had to talk to the clerk about a business that's changed names 4 times in the last 3 years on Ford Road in Lafayette there. Doesn't have a business license. I mean, we know they don't have it, so why aren't we going after them?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, one of the discussions we've had is that when you have the study session, we'd also like to talk about the fees, and rather than have a business owner get a fee from the fire department, get one from the city clerk's office, I'd like to move in a direction that there be like one fee covering all of this stuff. And that way,
Yes.
it'll be easier to administer and to follow up when it's delinquent. And I think all of us working together can come up with a good system that will
I believe you
coordinate all
mentioned that
about that
once
before.
before.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's a good
We
idea.
don't want to nickel and dime them, your words.
Yeah, yeah.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilwoman Horvath.
I had a question 10 minutes
I
ago.
forgot you, I'm
We're
sorry.
on my list now.
Pay your
I've
license
been
fee.
kind of following these bars and grills and restaurants and for quite a while, because as you all realize, some of them owe water, some of them don't have a business license, some of them don't have what they're supposed to have to operate in this city. Now, here we are talking about, let's do this, let's do that. They can do this, we can do that. No. There's a lot of money out there that they owe in water and other fees. I would prefer, and probably the study session will bring this out more, you know what? If you're, and I'm just using this for an example, if you're a high-grade steakhouse and you owe water, or you don't have a business license, or whatever else that the city requires, you get a letter, we're going to close you down. Period. I mean, why do we have to have their office, his office, all of those guys and gals out there? By the time we collect the money, we've already spent it all on administration. No, they know, and I agree. Who operates a business owing $5,000 in water? Who? In good conscience. I mean, they can operate the business, but in good conscience. So my take is, hey, you owe, and I already talked to Gary about it. It's not as easy as writing the letter, but it's easier than going through all this.
The down payment to go to Disneyland.
I think, because I've been following this for 2 or 3 years now, these bars and grills and restaurants that don't pay, and then when they get the letter, they suddenly have the money and come in. No, we're losing money on the deal.
So that'll all be good discussion
Yeah.
at our study session. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it, so we'll schedule that for our study session. The next item on the agenda from Police Chief Lee Gavin, K-9 team purchase.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilwoman Lisa Hicks Clayton.
I move to concur with Police Chief Lee Gavin and approve the request authorization to purchase out of OWI forfeiture account for our canine team, a canine dog. The total cost for the expenditure is $11,100, which is broken down in 9B. Payment must be presented at the time of canine selection, which is approximately April 3rd, 2016, as outlined in 9B.
Second.
Second by Councilman Kozinski. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman Lisa Clayton.
I want to thank the handler who's here, because you answered my questions earlier, which I appreciate. And some of the questions included the age of the dog, when the dog is going to be picked up, and as far as the training. And you did tell me that there is ongoing training for the handler and the dog, as well as, I believe, is it a certificate of health when you pick up the dog? I'm sorry to call you to the mic. Do you mind, just for public information? I'm sorry?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'd like to introduce
I didn't
our
see
new
him.
canine handler, and it's going to be Officer Jordan Dotter. So he's going to get the dog. As you know, back first of the year, we put Ozzy to sleep. We still have one dog, Chase. He's starting to get older. We'll probably retire that near the end of this year with Officer Colon. So Officer Dotter's going to go down, I think, April 3rd, select a dog. We're going to use the Canine Academy. Last time we went out to Macomb County. This time we're going to keep it close. They're out of Taylor. If you see in the literature, there's roughly 62, 65 dogs that he's training with right now. So Jordan's going to go down with them. He's already been to the academy. It's in Taylor, just off of Telegraph, south of 94. And somewhere around July 1st, the dog will be certified and ready to go. So,
Mr. Chair?
May I finish?
Oh, I'm sorry.
As the maker of the motion. I'm sorry, Chief, I didn't see you there, but I appreciate the handler being here as well and answering those questions. Just for a point of reference, like you said, Ozzy, who had to be euthanized, was 7 years old. So, you know, in German Shepherd years. But the question I have is just for public information. This dog is specialized trained for drug and explosive, is that correct?
it's going to be drugs and tracking.
Okay, and tracking, I'm sorry. And as far as like keep it in perspective, like with Ozzy in his 7 years of service, or 6 approximately, and I apologize, but do you know approximately the number of arrests he may have assisted with, revenue generated from that, just a return on investment? Because people will say, well, that's a lot of money for a dog, but I certainly understand the need and necessity for it.
I could produce those statistics to you. We have them at the station. I don't recall them.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Get those.
Councilman Musket.
I'll vote yes as long as I get to shake his paw and give him a treat after he's trained.
And you probably want to name them, right?
No, I don't know. Just shake his hand, shake his paw and give him a treat. That's all I care about.
Any further discussion?
So
After he's trained.
Yeah, Officer Dotter attended tonight just so I could introduce him to the council and the mayor and the clerk and everyone. So
Chief, thank you.
Jordan will
you.
be our new head.
Mr. Chairman.
Clerk Persevich, Walter Persevich.
Sorry for interrupting, but we got a little confused at this end of the table on the motion about the liquor license. There was one, and then, we don't know if somebody seconded it.
Yes,
I did.
I did.
Thank you very much.
And Counselor Miyake gave us the exact verdict, which Councilman Berry adopted in his motion.
Thank you, sorry for interrupting.
Any further discussion on 9B? Hearing none, all those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The next item on the agenda from Police Chief Brogan, purchase of computer printers.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kozinski.
I move council concur with the request of Fire Chief David Brogan to authorize the purchase of printers in a gross amount of $649.19. These printers will be compatible with the equipment now in place.
Second.
Second by Councilman Musket. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The next item on the agenda from Recreation Director Ken Greibel, Canfield Arena contract.
Mr. Chair,
Councilman Thomas Berry.
possible to have a discussion on this prior to making a motion?
If you would, Mr. Councilman, I would suggest, I put this on the agenda, and I talked to Mr. Greibel
Let's
about
move
it.
it to a study
For the purpose of a study session, and one of the questions, Gary, is is the study session, should it be a closed session or open, given the situation that we're in on this?
It is, I guess I could be involved and give a written opinion about things, and then that would be the basis for a closed
Yeah.
session.
I think given the history and everything, we might want to do a closed session.
I would
on that.
move this to a closed study session.
Second.
It's seconded by Councilman Kozinski. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The next item on the agenda, all from Recreation Director Ken Greibel, the 2016 Spirit Festival Adult Beverage Supplier.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Lisa Hicks Clayton.
I move to concur with Parks and Recreation Director Kenneth Greibel and to award the adult beverage supplier for the Spirit 2016 Festival to O&W Inc. as outlined in 9E.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Kozinski. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No. No.
It's Councilman Berry and Councilman
No.
Musket.
And I've got
Dave
no.
Abdallah.
And Councilman Abdullah. So 3 noes and
Passes on.
the next item on the agenda,
I'm getting a stare over here. If I can clarify, from the day I've sat at the council chair, I have never condoned alcoholic beverages at the Spirit Fest. So in not supporting the alcohol beverages there, I obviously cannot support an agenda item to secure a provider. So that's why.
I concur with Councilman Berry on that.
Concur.
thank you. The next item on the agenda from Emergency Manager Bob Ancrap, advertising sales for Dearborn Heights Today newsletter.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kozinski.
I move council concur with the request of Bob Ancrap and move forward with the proposal of the advertising system that he wants to test for a period of one time as outlined in 9F.
Support?
Support by Councilman Berry. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. The next item on the agenda is business license renewals for Confetti Lounge, Famous Auto, and High Grade Steakhouse.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilwoman Horvath.
are these guys, everything paid up with these three? May I ask that question? Water?
Everything is.
Shevich. So High Grade had not paid, and now they've paid?
All obligations have been settled.
Okay. Okay, I move that the council approve the renewal, license renewal for Confetti Liquor Box, Famous Auto Center, and High Grade Steakhouse as outlined in 13A.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. That ends the regular portion of our meeting. Our Police Chief Lee Gavin.
Council Chair, Ms. Lisa asked if we had the statistics on the dogs. I forgot to introduce Captain Walter Torney. He has the statistics over the last 6-7 years with the dogs, so either he can do them now publicly, or we can meet with her after the meeting.
It'd be great to hear, I think, to hear it publicly.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and,
Good knowledge.
when you say statistics regarding the dogs, meaning,
Well, just a brief overview of the production of their work. Roughly participated in 600 calls for service, whether it was tracking individuals, narcotic seizures, tracking lost individuals, and approximately $400,000 in asset seizures. That doesn't mean we received $400,000. They were instrumental in that amount of money being sniffed. So we did receive a percentage of that, so the dogs pay for themselves.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Good to know.
All right, any other announcements from anybody at the table? Any announcements?
Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, it'd be interesting to know what kind of pension benefit that dog is going to get.
A good home.
Retirement.
Well, he's been retired in the wrong way, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true.
I do have.
Councilman, or Councilwoman Lisa Clayton.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, just real quick, if we could get an update on the Catholic Services Building and the cars that are there, as well as there's across the street, there's an RV, it's an older, very much older model RV. I'm not quite sure if that's actually for sale or abandoned. See if you had an update for us, please.
Catholic Social Services is actually owned by a company called SOFI, S-O-O-F-I, and I think it's been issued to them for a month or birth. The vehicles may or may not belong to the person operating it in Jackson. I haven't been able to verify that, but we're just going to issue the ticket out of
Okay.
And more home, I can't tell you right now where that's at. I know it's in the
Okay, I appreciate that, thank you. I did want to share, I'm attending the Michigan Municipal League Capital Convention this week in Lansing, and I went to a great program today on revitalizing neighborhoods as well as how that works with redevelopment of business corridors. And I know the mayor has some information from SimCog. We talked about that a little bit, the resources available, the Partnering for Prosperity, as well as the economic redevelopment toolkit. But I brought some resources that I brought for council members and want to share, which is making an economic case for our place, for our city. So there's resources that I want to share with everyone that's available, including an online site, which is www.micity.org, which is like a pool of ideas from other municipalities, what they're doing to redevelop their business corridors and revitalize their neighborhoods, which is instrumental to community success, everything from public safety to rehabilitation of homes and things of that nature. So I just wanted to share that with everybody.
Mr. Chair?
Well, Councilman Berry had something.
No, please, go ahead.
Go ahead.
This has got something to do with this here. The MML is showing us how much our mayor is having difficulties with revenue sharing coming from the state, on how low it's gotten, how much we've given more in the last 6, 8, 10 years, and how bad it's gone down in that time. And it's a lot of money that's being left on the table, and the MML is showing us how much that really is, and it's a scary number.
Yeah. And if I may follow up on that and give the exact number, since 2006, I know you already know this, but for residents to know the impact, which is what MML asked us to share today, to come back and let our residents know, since 2006, over $7.5 billion has been diverted from local governments, which pays for your services, including fire, police, and roads. So that's really important that we actively lobby for those funds, because the state revenue has increased, but we're not seeing that returned to our local governments, and it does impact us.
Yes.
Sales tax. Councilman Berry?
Are we okay? On a lighter note here, I'd like to reach out to our councilman, Mr. Dave Abdullah. First of all, you got a nice suntan. Second, but probably more important, you got that suntan because you were down in Orlando, and again, for the second year in a row, you were named the #1 salesperson of Century 21 in the country. Not the city of Dearborn Heights, not Michigan, the country. Nice job. Nice job.
I appreciate my customers for all their help, of course.
No, hold on a second, please. All right, thank you. Miss Jack, I have to ask a question, please. I was not here during the last meeting, and I apologize for that. If I was here, I would have probably heard. But can you please help me and tell me if, in fact, we've identified those homes that are creating the rat problem for us in the other side of the city? And what is our plan, or what have we begun to do to approach that or to resolve it?
It's not just one side of the city, north or south. It's in all areas of the city. I'm not getting the number of phone calls that I'd like to get, but I will say that in the last 2 or 3 weeks, those calls have increased. And so we have kind of identified particular areas. Just to let you know, what I mentioned last time is when our 2 officers passed their certification and got their state certification when they passed the test, I made the decision to not start issuing bait boxes. What I needed to do, what I needed to do was to get all the boxes that were still on hold at the point when the state asked us to suspend the program until the certification happened. So as of today, between the 2 officers, I would say we're about 80% complete in terms of getting those boxes that were existing current. A lot of boxes have been pulled. Many have been resumed that were already there, and we're working on those.
But here's my question, and you know that the emails come flying back and forth, and I've clicked on a few of them, and I looked at some pictures, and I've seen some homes that really we need to address to clean up some of the blight.
Yeah.
Do we have addresses? Have we begun to issue citations and work on these homes?
Yes, we've been doing that all along. We've never stopped doing that. Even when we stopped using the bait boxes, we were doing that. One thing that's obviously been helpful is that we've been able to go back to those areas that we were before where there was a problem and establish if it's still a problem, if we need to continue, or if it either resolved itself on its own. We put a practice in place in the last 3 months where we go to a particular property and then we address all the surrounding properties, at least around there. I will tell you today I had a phone call, and this is what I run against a lot, and I want to address this. A resident called today, and I actually had talked to her probably about 2 years ago. Rats aren't on her property, but she sees them quite often traveling through her property. She's aware that the cause of this issue is her neighbor next door, no doubt about it. And we've been to that property multiple times, and they've been issued tickets as well. So one of the things that I'm confident that's going to happen as a result of a community effort, and when I say that, I mean community, mean the residents that live there, is that they're going to start talking with each other and have some conversations. And as a result of this, that's happening. People are getting these letters, and then at the end of the day at 5 o'clock, when they're all standing on their front porch and they're all sharing the same letter, they're all looking at each other, they're meeting in the street or they're meeting on the sidewalk, and they're having conversations, and it's encouraging people to now talk to their neighbors about things that they've been frustrated about for years. This one in particular is that they have a shed. It doesn't have a rat wall. There's obvious holes that are going underneath this shed. And they also have 3 animals that they openly admitted they pick up the dog waste on a weekly basis only.
Well, let me ask you about the shed. If you put a shed on your property, isn't it required that you have a permit to put it there?
Based on the size of it, it is, yes.
Based on the size of it, it is. So I'm going to assume that it would have justified a permit.
Correct.
And they could have put this up without anybody's knowledge.
This shed's going to have to come down.
Okay.
And that's going to happen through the court process. They're not willing to do it on their own, so we're going to eventually be in court, and we're going to ask for a judgment where they correct the enforcement that's occurring, the violation that's occurring on their property.
Thank you very much.
While I'm here, I'll just do this real quick. I was on the mayor's show recently. Bob and I have been working on doing a press release. We are starting a sweep program in about 4 weeks. In about a week's time, folks that live, and we're doing this throughout the whole city, people that live between Pelham and Southfield, Outer Drive, and Van Born, that's the first group we're coming to. They're going to get a letter about 3 weeks before we get there. And what a sweep is that every officer that we have, and that's right now it's 3 full-time and 2 part-time, and myself, we're going to hit this area on one particular day. We're going to give them a notice. It's going to come in the mail. Just a little public service announcement. If you're an owner of a property and you're using your property that you own that is a rental as a mailing address, you'll want to get that corrected as soon as possible so that that letter that comes to you instead of possibly going to the property and that tenant never getting that letter to you. A letter is going to go out. It's basically a 3-week warning saying that in 3 weeks we're coming, and there's going to be 5 things that we address. Outdoor storage, inoperable and abandoned vehicles, dog feces on property, unlicensed dogs, and any kind of blight on the property. This letter is going to come and it's going to say to your area, we'll be there in 3 weeks. If we come and those things are on your property, we're going to issue a ticket on the spot. 3 weeks is 1 week longer than the kind of notice that we're even giving now currently. We typically give a 7-day notice. We go back 7 days later. We give another 7-day warning, and then we issue a ticket. We're going to give them a 3-week warning. It's going to come in the mail. Those are things that can be corrected. It'll involve 3 garbage days, so it'll give you an opportunity to clean up and get some things out to the trash. It doesn't mean that we're going to stop any of our other enforcements that are going on, even in that area. If something's already going on, we're going to follow through with it. So,
Mr. Chair. Nice. And Director McIntyre, if you could, if somebody has a complaint or to your department, what's the best procedure?
all right, it's not Facebook.
Not Facebook.
Definitely not Facebook. The only person that goes on Facebook and I get information about it is my daughter, and she does that because she's trying to protect my virtue, and she thinks I'm awesome. She's a little disappointed at what people have to say about me. So we don't do it through Facebook. There's 3 ways. You can either come to the counter at the ordinance department. You can call us directly, and that number is 313-791-3497. You can email us, and you email us at the word ordinance at ci.dearborn-heights.mi.us. And I'm sorry, obviously there's a 4th way. We also have the eGov link system. If you go to the city's website, there's a tracking system. You get assigned a tracking number, and you can request feedback in terms of how the situation is being resolved.
And please include the address.
Yeah, always the address, the street, and the nature of the complaint. So
The address of the property.
one of my concerns is there's been a lot of posts on Facebook, on different pages and different social media outlets. And my concern is, as I've said all along, is that information isn't getting to us. It's just become, I don't think it was intended this way. I want to be fair to the author of the Facebook page. I don't think it was intended for this person, but I think it's become a place for people to kind of vent and complain. But unfortunately, it's not getting anything resolved. And so I have a system, much like every other director who are colleagues of mine. We have systems of how we want information to come into our office. We are not perfect, and I'll be the first one to admit that I'm not perfect. If someone put something on the online system a year ago and we haven't responded to it, I apologize. Please call me directly and I'll look to see what it was, and I'll make sure that it gets resolved. We are doing our very best. Michelle was off sick today, and I have 101 messages that I'm going to try to go through before tomorrow morning. So we get a lot of calls coming in. So.
Councilwoman Lisa Hicks Clayton.
Thank you. That was what I wanted to say to you, Jack, and to the mayor. I watched the mayor show and saw your report and your ordinance show, and I thought it was very good information. I'm very pleased that you're doing the sweeps. I'm even more pleased that you are using it as an opportunity for public outreach and education and resources. I think that's outstanding. So thank you for doing that, and I commend you for that and getting that information out there. We do need to stress to the residents that the policies are in place for a reason. Go through ErgoLink or email, like you said, or call. So, people will post on Facebook, but sometimes they don't list the address. And that's frustrating because I know there was a situation this weekend, and I even drove around looking for it and could not find it. So, and you're really frustrated because you can't resolve or address the issue without that pertinent information. So thank you for that and having that show. I had one more.
Done yet? This is the Lisa Hicks show.
No. Hey, you guys talk more than I do. Come on. I had one more thing.
Go ahead.
I may.
And then Councilman Abdullah.
This is a question for the administration. With the municipal fleet vehicles and without, there's like the DPW supervisors' trucks, there's, I think, 5 of them there, as well as ordinance vehicles. Noticed, and it's been brought to my attention by residents, that they don't have the City of Dearborn Heights logo or emblem on them. So the question is, because it is considered a best practice in government and may be found in some code chapters, not in ours, but in other municipalities, it makes it easy to identify and increase public awareness, which is what we want to do. Is this something that might be considered?
We identified all the equipment as was required. We went through this a couple of years ago, so if you tell me what vehicle, I'll track it down.
Okay.
The other thing, you weren't here last week, but, and I thank Councilman Berry for the matrix that he sent me, but we are looking at, as one of the solutions in the capital outlay, enterprise that handles fleet management. So they'll be coming at a future meeting.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, that's
Councilman Abdullah?
Yeah, I just had, and you don't need the microphone, I'm just curious, how many of those bait boxes do you have out, Director Jack?
At one time we had, I think, 72 out total, and I think we're down to 36. And those are the ones that were already in place when the state asked us to suspend the program. We obviously have more available.
Councilman Muskin.
Okay, thank you.
A couple of things. I spoke to Director McIntyre about commercial vehicles. And I can only state that in my neighborhood, it's starting to look like an industrial parkway. And I understand that some of these vehicles are marked, some of them aren't marked, but they've got their ladders on there. They've got the gates that separate the driver's seat. It's only got a driver's seat on it, and the rest is full of equipment. How do we stop? We have ordinances on this. How do we, I guess this is going to go to corporate counsel, because I think you've addressed this with Jack, but some of these vans are rusted out. They look like, excuse my language, hell, okay? And when I turn a corner on one street, there's like 7 or 8 of them within 7 houses, and they're horrible. They're taking up a lot of the parking spots on the street, and we can barely get through. And they are being used for commercial use. I don't care if they're marked up or not. They are being used for commercial use, okay? And we can't have that anymore. We've got to find a way to put a stop to it. I don't care if it's got writing on it or not. These vehicles are being used for that commercial use. We've got to stop it. Our city is being overrun with this stuff. We've never had, in all the years that I've lived in the city for 50 years, I've never seen anything like this before. We've got to come up with a way to make these people stop. I know at one time, one of our residents suggested we get a parking lot of some sort and have everybody park it in one spot. And I know there's liabilities to that, but by God, we got to do something. And we got to come up with a way, Mr. Miyake, to put a stop to it.
Well, I haven't heard about this type of problem in some time. I don't know, Jack, if you've had any particular issues lately, but certainly if Jack wants to, or the mayor wants me to, we'll be looking into this.
I've been in contact with Jack about this problem now for a few months now, and he's gone out and looked at it, and he sees them, but I guess his hands are tied to a certain degree. So I'd like to see something resolved on that issue. And then if I may continue on a different subject, please.
Go ahead.
I'd like to congratulate our Parks and Rec Director, Kenneth Greibel, and Kim Constant on passing their, to requalify for their professional certification with the National Recreation and Parks Association. So want to say thank you for that. And my next comment is directed at our council chair. We voted to have a study session on the professional negotiator. I'd like to see that happen sooner than later.
Yeah, and I think we have a date of April 5th at 7 o'clock, and we're going to meet the attorneys from Cummings, McClory, and discuss that.
We're going to meet with the attorneys, or?
We're going to meet them. So it used to be another attorney,
Yes.
Tom Laginus, who
Right.
and and so we're going to be introduced to the labor attorneys that do the negotiation.
So the two women that the mayor had said that he found are not going to be part of this?
Yeah,
Those are the two attorneys.
Okay.
And the chairman contacted me, and we had to check to see when their schedule was available, and your meetings, but it was as soon as possible, and I guess April, whatever.
Yeah, that was when they were both available.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Saturday, April 23rd is our Ecorse Creek cleanup at Swapka Park, and one of our watershed stewards, Tom Wenzel, has developed a flyer, and we're selling this year, again, sponsorship, so you get your name on a T-shirt, and Steve Roberts is here. I don't know if he wants to say anything more about it, but we do this every year. It'll be Saturday, April 23rd, starting at 9 a.m., registration at 8:30 at Swapka Park. And we always get some of the Honor Society students and others helping us out. And then this Saturday, the 26th, is our annual Kiwanis Easter egg hunt. So if, just to let everyone know, they can come out, and the kids can go out on the field next to the Canfield Center, and there's eggs with candy and some money in them. That's this Saturday at, starting about, is it 9:30? 11.
Volunteers report at 9.
Any other announcements? Mr. Clerk?
I'll try to make this very brief. We're working on the election. I think this month we have 5 Tuesdays, so we're not going to have a council meeting for the next 2 weeks. Our ballots will be going out late next week, so give them a week to get to you if you apply for an absentee ballot. If you do not receive it, call us right away so we can remedy the situation. 313-791-3432. Another thing that just kind of shook my memory when Director McIntyre talked about contacting him. Please, at least for my office, if you email me and I do not respond, I respond to every email, call me. I have been having trouble with our email system. Twice before the election, if I come in the morning and I don't have an email, I know something's wrong. So twice I had to call and have this situation remedied, and this morning I got a phone call and said, I emailed you, and what's the deal? And I never got the email. So please don't trust email. If you email me and I don't respond in the day, call me. So, and any other, of course, questions related to elections, feel free to call. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements, Mayor?
Real quickly, composting starts when? April 4th. So we'll start collecting composting. Want to wish the chairman later this week happy birthday. I'm not going to ask you what year it is. And had the pleasure today to do a ribbon cutting ceremony for the reopening of Wendy's on Telegraph just south of Joy Road. And the thrill of the day was I got to meet Wendy.
So yard waste pickup starts April 4th? First full week in April, great.
I already have so much.
Oh, God.
Any other announcements? Any other announcements? All right, hearing none, if
Wait a
we
minute,
have.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry.
Chrissy and Walt are having a duo over here.
Because we're going to get to residents in 1 minute. Right, it's an announcement, but it's from a resident, so we'll get to you about the millage, I suspect, and just announce about without saying yea or nay, but go ahead.
The Dearborn Heights Rotary is having its annual Surf and Turf Dinner on Saturday, April 9th at Joy Manor from 6 to 12 a.m. They, tin can raffles, 50/50, music, dancing, premium bar, lobster, steak. It's like a wedding without the speeches. It's awesome. Tickets are on sale in the mayor's office, $60 a ticket until next Tuesday, and then they go to $70 a ticket. It's on our website. on our calendar on our website is also on the Dearborn Heights Rotary Club's website. It's the annual Surf and Turf Dinner on Saturday, April 9th. Good cause, good organization.
Thank you. Okay, any members of the public?
Good evening, Zuhair Abdulhaq. I just want to remind our resident that District 7, Crestwood District has a bond for $35 million. It's going to be voted on May 3rd. And everybody who wants to be able to vote on May 3rd, please register to vote by April 3rd. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other members of the public? Please state your name and your street.
Hussein Al Hajamad, Hanover Street.
I don't know.
Fortunately, Mr. Chairman, I have emailed every single one of the city members regarding the flood that happened on our street last March 14, which was last Monday. We didn't have that much of rain, and this particular area keeps going through the flood. When it snows, we have an issue. When it's raining, we have an issue. This particular area of Dearborn Heights was announced as a flood zone by FEMA. Unfortunately, believe it or not, our taxes went almost about $8,000 to $16,000 per house. We don't really understand. We're not getting the services that we're supposed to. And we're a flood zone area. And our taxes are going up. It doesn't make sense. If we're gonna put these houses up for sale, who's gonna buy them? Who's gonna pay the value that you guys are appraising them? Especially my house. I don't even get services when it snows. I get all the trash and all the garbages when it rains. DPW don't even treat my potential part of the street in front of my house as they're supposed to. And my taxes went up like almost $650. I mean,
Director Zimmer, was there, March 14th of this year, was there some flooding over there on Hanover?
yes, it was, and I have pictures, and I've emailed it to every single one of you guys.
There was some minor flooding, curb to curb. I did have a supervisor that did respond to a call from the police department. Catch basins were all clear, so I'm guessing that the level of the creek was even with the catch basins, which probably resulted in the water in the streets. We were out the very next day with 2 sweepers, swept the whole subdivision.
There was no flooding it didn't go up over the curb and into the houses?
I was told no.
I have pictures on my phone. The water went all the way past the driveway. And I'm sorry, don't get me wrong, no sweeper went out there. No sweeper went out there. We still have garbages on that street from last spring. And I've complained about it last year, and every time we complain about it, DPW does not even go on Hanover. We have some yard waste sit on Hanover due to the park waste since last year. Every year I have to spend in at least 6 to 7 hours trying to clean all that leave up, and you guys won't even pick it up at once because there's a limit of bags. When I'm trying to clean this area up so I won't have it back on my property and I have to deal back with the ordinance department, the least you guys can do is come out there and clean them up.
So in another week or so, they're going to start picking up yard waste?
And God knows if they will pick them up or not.
Mr. Chairman.
Because they have an ordinance, they pick up a limited amount of bags.
I really don't want to get in the middle of this, but a different resident gave me a call. I went out on Hanover. There's somebody that, I don't know whose pickup truck, but it is parked all the time right at the dead-end post. And so I asked Mr. Zimmer to get the crews out there, and then I get a response back, well, we can't clean the street because there's this vehicle that's parked. And I went out there myself, and it's parked there. I went 3 or 4 different times, and it was parked there each and every time.
Mr. Chairman, this is a photo of the day.
Low area. Go ahead.
This is a photo of the day at this residence where the vehicle was parked at this dead end.
This is my yellow pickup truck that I wasn't able to move because that's all of that stuff turned into ice. If you expect me to move my pickup truck when there's all ice out there and risking my car and my life, you go ahead and move it yourself. This
We
is my
can't-
own personal car that
We
I drive
can't,
every single day.
we can't service this area.
I'm sorry?
We can't service this area
This
when this
picture, just
vehicle,
look at the mark again. This picture, I have the same picture on my phone. This was taken the third day of the snow.
This was Thursday.
That snow stayed in front of my house for 4 days in a row and didn't even melt because it turned all to ice. Don't give me no excuses because it was not your first time. I always have the issue. This is my personal car that I take to work every single day.
Let's do this, we'll meet after the meeting and we'll
this
go over it.
vehicle was parked in the roadway during a snow emergency. The trash cans are also still out when the trash collection day was 2 days prior to this.
Anybody else?
Got a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.